there was a big neighborhood gathering in my neighborhood. I guess that kind of is redundant. Either way, there was a big neighborhood gathering, okay? And everyone there knows, obviously, what I do for a living. They're all Republicans. And they were all so down. They were all so concerned, just faces just twisted in concern, talking about the coming election, where we are as a country, Kamala Harris. There wasn't any feeling of confidence, any feeling of joy, any feeling of, hey, if we lose, we'll get through this. It was dour in there. So I felt the need to have a little talk with you about just that, because maybe that's where you are. Maybe you're feeling down. First of all, I want you to understand this and understand this very well. Poll numbers, it's not that they lie. Sometimes they tell the truth. Poll numbers are oftentimes designed to demoralize you. I know you've been looking at the polls. Oh my gosh, Harris is ahead in a lot of the polls. The race is tightening. Well, hold on a second. The race was always going to tighten. Here's a little tidbit for you. On this day in 2016, Hillary Clinton was up 6.8% in the polling average. That's not just one-off poll. The polling average, she was up 6.8%. She ended up losing to Donald Trump. That's not me telling you all the polls lie, but allow me to explain something politically, how this works, and I'll tell you, I ran for Congress before, twice. I may or may not have done something like this. Here's how it works. Here's what you do. This is done on a much smaller level, but I have an opponent, Democrat opponent, maybe a primary opponent, and I want to give my donors some confidence. I want to give my volunteers, I want to give them motivation. I need them to show up this Saturday. We got to go knock on doors, make phone calls, vote Jesse Kelly. I need to give them something. So I take a couple grand of campaign money. I find a pollster who will do as he's told, and he does a poll. He calls 1,000 people, 500 people. And the poll gets skewed in such a way, it's very easy to do this. You can make sure you're calling a higher percentage of Republicans than Democrats. The poll gets skewed in such a way that all of a sudden I'm putting out a press release. Oh my gosh, this poster shows Jesse. He's within 1%. He's down, but he's within 1%. It's anybody's race. And I quickly do what? My campaign staff would quickly do what? All across social media. Jesse's in striking distance. Send out to the email list. Help us push Jesse over the top. On a national scale, when you deal with presidential politics, you see so much of that and you might not even realize it, because what do we focus on? It's a very human nature thing to do. What do we focus on? We focus on the headlines. We wake up in the morning, poll shows Harris up 10%, our hands start shaking. Oh my gosh, call your mom, all is lost. She might have paid for that poll to motivate her base and to demoralize you. Now, I am not sitting here blowing sunshine up you, whatever. I'm not sitting here telling you it's fine, we're going to win, don't worry at all. I'm here telling you it's neck and neck. Once they dumped Joe Biden, it was always going to be neck and neck. This country is sadly very evenly divided between demonic communists and normal people. This is anybody's race. Anyone can win. It is the fourth quarter. It's at the end of the game. Don't look up at the scoreboard because the other team kicked a field goal and you're down 3, and look around at your teammates, look at yourself in the mirror and say, all is lost, it's hopeless. It's not at all hopeless. This is anyone's game. And allow me to leave you with this one before we move on. We have other things we want to do. This stuff matters. I know that, you know that. That's why you care about it. That's why you watch this show. That's why we do what we do. We care about the country. We care about who holds power. We care about politics. We understand the stakes. So I'm not being dismissive of that at all. Remember this, though. If you're going to base your happiness at a neighborhood party, you're going to let the mood of the neighborhood party be determined by whatever poll came out that morning. Or, come November, if you're going to base your happiness, your contentment on whether or not Donald Trump defeats Kamala Harris, you are setting yourself up for a life of misery. We want to win. We should care. And if Trump loses in November, it should hurt us. It will hurt me. I'm assuming it hurts you. But we will pick ourselves up the next day and dust ourselves off and march on. We are not in a battle for November. We're in a battle for a nation, a cultural battle that will last 100 years, if not more. So just buckle up and settle in for the long game. They are settled in for the long game. Whether they win or lose in November, they'll be marching forward at all times. We must do the same, all right? So we talk about the newest headline every day, the newest scandal, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Trump, and all those things, they matter. They're important. What we talk about matters. I'm not putting us down, but we lose sight of the fact that every American citizen, old, young, left, right, middle, black, white, Christian, Muslim, whatever, every single American citizen is currently watching their life, I don't want to say go away, that's too dramatic, but their standard of living is going down. And many Americans are drowning. And we get so lost in talking about the latest bill and taxes and things that gets lost on us. And here's why. Have you ever heard this situation? I'll make it about sports. Here's why this happens to us. Barry Sanders, you remember who Barry Sanders was? If you're old enough, you remember, of course, who Barry Sanders was. He was this amazing running back for the Detroit Lions. And so every now and then it would happen, the Lions would finish a game and they'd lose, and they'd look at the stat sheet and the fans would be yelling the whole game, "Give Barry Sanders the ball!" And they'd look at the plays and Barry Sanders touched the ball 10 times. And then someone would go to the coach and he'd say, "Hey, coach, he's like the best player in the world, and you only gave him the ball 10 times. And the coach really didn't realize it. Well, I mean, I had studied so much film, and if you really do this and that. Whereas the people in the stands, they weren't involved. They could see because they were on the outside. Give Barry Sanders the ball. The coach was such an expert, he didn't know. That's what we do with politics. Because right now, people are drowning. This is not something that's coming in the future. Right now, low-income people are drowning. I want you to think about it this way. American citizens and their income level, think about it like a vertical stick, right? And so the bottom is the poorest ones, the top are the richest ones. The water is currently rising, and there are so many people who are already underwater and not making it right now. Maybe that's not you. Maybe it is you. Maybe you're barely making it. Your head's just barely sticking above. Poor people, older retired folks on fixed income, they're already underwater. But it's coming for all of us as the waters rise. 2.9% inflation. Okay, that's the nerd number. That's the number year over year. Set that aside because they lie about everything. Here's the real number. Gas is up 50%. 50%. This is just in the past 4 years. 50%. Electricity, 32%. Producer Matt, just dropped 900 bones on an electric bill. Think about that. Groceries up 21%. Oh, and this all comes with earnings. What you're making is down 3.9%. Okay, those are numbers and percentages and nerd things. Set that aside. What that means is people aren't making it. And aren't making it, it means different things to different people depending on how hard this is hitting you. For some people, and I'm not dismissing this at all, for some people it means no family vacation this year. I'll tell you, we didn't grow up with a bunch of money, but we went on a family vacation almost every year. Sometimes I was driving down to Myrtle Beach for a couple of days, but as a family would take a vacation, time off, time with family. Families are canceling that. They can't do it. Adult children are moving back in with their parents. Parents, retired, that Social Security check isn't cutting it anymore. The part-time job isn't cutting it anymore. They're moving back in with their kids. This is not something that's coming. This is happening right now. This might be happening to you right now. I have a listener to my show, an older couple, farm couple. They're selling off everything they have. They've officially maxed out every credit card, trying to get through until the end of this. But the end isn't coming. And it won't be an event anyway. We're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and, wow, inflation's way down. That's not how inflation works. We've printed and spent too much money. Now it's going to take a lot of pain, years of it, to get back. And that's if we start doing the right thing now, and we haven't even begun. Listen to this woman in Philadelphia. Listen to her suffering.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
Who do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
$5 for a bell pepper. Maybe you heard that and maybe that resonated with you because you were going through the exact same thing. Maybe you heard that and maybe it brought home to you what others are going through because you're blessed enough financially that you're not going through that yet. But you should understand that stick, the income stick we talked about, the waters are rising. Now, 40% of Americans worry about paying the bills. 40%. Credit card debt has hit an all-time high, $1.14 trillion with a T. That doesn't mean people are buying Lamborghinis, although I'm sure there's some of that in there. People are maxing out their credit cards to make ends meet, to try to get through it. Now, this is the part, I'm going to pause on all this for a second, and I'm going to discuss something. There's understanding there's a problem, and there's understanding why there's a problem. Buddy of mine was at a party. Daughter was inside making bacon. It was a pool party. Everyone was outside. It's hot here in Texas. Everyone was outside. She was inside making a big old batch of bacon to go with everything else they were cooking, just on the frying pan on the stovetop, right? We've all done it. And bacon gets done. She takes her little fork or tongs. She picks all the bacon up, puts it on a plate, brings it outside. Everyone's outside, right? Woo-hoo-hoo. She brain farts it and leaves the frying pan on. So there's no one in the house to smell the smoke as things start getting smoky. And there's no one in the house at first to see the flames that begin to grow on the stovetop. Finally, someone looks in, oh my gosh, the house is on fire. Now, here's the thing. Everyone can run inside, and they did, and notice. Everyone can see the smoke, the flames. Everyone knows things are on fire. The question is, how do you solve the problem? There will be some people in there who believe you solve it by filling up a jug of water and dumping it on there, which of course will only make a grease fire worse. And then there are others who know to grab the fire extinguisher, some baking soda, whatever, to put out a grease fire. Back to the economy. Everyone knows, Republican, Democrat, rich, poor, top, bottom, middle, everyone knows things are more expensive and things are bad. That's not the problem. The problem is how many people understand it's the government's fault. How many people understand that it's that $1 trillion bill you didn't really care about? That's why you can't afford eggs. It's the money printing by the trillion. That's why you can't afford your power bill. The United States government's spending and printing is the reason your life is more expensive. And unless your cries of pain are also matched or also paired with cries to reduce government spending, then you aren't trying to solve a thing and nothing will change. And how bad are people suffering? Well, this is probably the biggest thing for me. Because it's one thing to get these new reports all the time. Oh, inflation's 2.9% and power's up 32%. It's one thing to nerd out on details. The details that matter are details like this. In recent weeks, we've had gigantic corporations like McDonald's and now Home Depot coming out and saying people aren't shopping. And I need to explain this. These big mega corporations, they track everything. When you get to that level as a company, You have entire divisions of people dedicated to tracking everything. They understand that in July of 2022, they sold 24.5% more wood screws than they did of July in 2021. They understand every comparison, every chart, every graph. They chart absolutely everything. And Home Depot says people aren't spending. People aren't buying those wood screws anymore. McDonald's has come out and said people aren't spending. McDonald's. For basic low-cost items, people aren't spending. And it's not just where we're at. It's that nobody is currently bailing the water. The water levels are just rising, and they're all adding to it. In the meantime, we might be 90 days away from Kamala Harris being elected president, God forbid. But if we do, look, this is the woman who might take over the reins.
Economy is one of the voters' top concerns. Obviously, polls out today show inflation is slowing. Yeah. Why do you think, though, with recent polling numbers, that potentially the policies maybe aren't resonating with some of the base or some of the Americans here in the United States?
Listen, first of all, I think that we know that it takes time for people to feel the policies.
Of course. They're not going to own anything. They're certainly not going to change anything. They'll just give these completely dishonest answers. Oh, you just need some more time. Give it some more time. Don't worry that you can't afford to feed your family. And look, this is why I know it's a nerdy thing. I know a lot of people don't talk a lot about spending. There are sexier topics, but I've been screaming about this forever. For years, I've been saying stuff like this. The GOP lined up for the last 4 years. 4 years, and voted yes, and voted yes, and voted yes, and voted yes on multiple, massive spending bills. Truth is, no one cares. And no one's going to care until the whole house of cards come crashing down. And everyone's going to look around and they're going to say, well, how'd this happen? How'd this happen? Well, here's the hard truth of it. Talk about making you uncomfortable. Here's the hard truth of it. When that happens, you and I will both have to go look in the mirror and say, that's on me. I never demanded better. So I never got better. You get what you get. Don't throw a fit. Is spending an issue for you in this election cycle or any election cycle? When your Republican congressman, senator, president, when he signs $1 trillion bill, do you get mad or do you make excuses? Well, that's the reason you can't afford eggs. I'm going to discuss the Kamala Harris campaign, the Joe Biden disaster, the where we are as a society, but I'm going to use a little story to lead you up into that. You see, I have 2 sons. When I was younger, and they were much younger, we're talking little kids, think 2, 3, 4 years old. They would obviously obsess over things like superheroes. What little boy doesn't obsess over Superman or Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk? But they loved superheroes, comic books, movies, whatever came out. Of course, young boys like superheroes. And when they were that young, I would go and I would tell them, because I'm a terrible father, I would tell them that, hey, I'm the Incredible Hulk. And I would just be able to say things like that to them. And they're, what? No way. Oh, that's so cool. Hey, can you turn green for us? And I would say, no, I don't want to hurt anybody, but I just want to let you know your dad's the Incredible Hulk. I know it's kind of cruel, but it was hilarious. And then it didn't take them long as they started to get older. I would go to them and I'd say, hey, I'm the Incredible Hulk. And they would say, oh, that's really cool. But we never see you turn green. It's kind of weird. We believe you, but you don't really ever turn green. And then as they grow a little bit older and they start to learn to use this, didn't take them long, 6, 7 years old. Boys, I'm the Incredible Hulk. And they said, Dad, no, you're not. You never turn green. Don't say it's because you haven't gotten mad. We see you get mad, Dad. You haven't turned green. You're lying to us. So you see the progression. When they're super, super young, I could tell them anything and they would believe it. I'd walk up to automatic doors and put my hand out and tell them I had Jedi powers, and the door would open and they'd say, wow, that's a Jedi. They'd believe anything. And then as they got older and older and sharper and wiser, they started to question things and figure things out. Now, I want you to think about American society right now. Because what you're seeing right now with the Kamala Harris campaign is, I'm going to use the word an experiment. I'm not sure if that's exactly the word I want to use, but this is what you're seeing right now. The American communist has, for the longest time, had to shade the truth a little bit here. And he still does this all the time. Kind of use a little bit of truth and just kind of veer off it a little bit here. Mostly true, but then he kind of just swerves a little bit. And as America has gone in reverse from my sons, that's the point I'm trying to make here, we're going the opposite direction. The communists is starting to figure out more and more that he needs less and less of that truth in order to get huge portions of the population to believe something. So maybe he used to need 80% truth, and then he watched over the years as that number ticked down, 70, 60%. Okay, hey, we can tell a half truth now. Ooh, what's that? Do you think we could get away with 30%? Let's try a 30% truth. And what he's trying to figure out is, has he dumbed down and demoralized our society, enough of our society, I should say, has he dumbed down and demoralized enough of our society to the point he doesn't need a single percentage of truth. He needs 0% truth. He can just invent something out of thin air and have enough of the American people believe it. What you're looking at right now with the Kamala Harris campaign is exactly that. I'm going to say something for you. This is amazing. Kamala Harris is the Democrat nominee for President of the United States of America, even though she didn't really, earn it. Either way, she's the Democrat nominee for President of the United States of America. She doesn't have policies listed. None. Zero. The Democrat nominee for president doesn't have policies listed on her website. I could pull up the small mom and pop donut shop who just opened in my town, this lovely old couple in this kind of ratty little shop. I think they spent 35 cents putting this place together. They have a website with menu options on there. The Democrat nominee for president doesn't feel the need to inform the American people of a single policy position of hers. Oh, she was just asked about it. Here she was.
When can we expect you to roll out your policy platform?
Next week, and it'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and also strengthen the economy overall.
Next week, the economy and some costs. And I need to point something else out. That reporter asked her a question. That in and of itself is stunning because nobody has gotten to ask her a question. In fact, I believe that's the third question she's been asked in the 3 weeks she's been the Democrat nominee for president. She won't do interviews. She won't state her policy positions. She is nothing. A complete blank slate. She has given the American people nothing of substance, zero truth, no facts, no nothing. How in the world could they be that brazen? How in the world could they be that obvious, that blatant? How in the world could they do this? You know what? You want to put the cherry on top of it? You remember Trump's been out there a lot lately, talking about taxes on tips. Trump rants about this all the time. There shouldn't be taxes on tips. They're taxing your tips for waitresses and things like that. No taxes on tips, no taxes on tips. This is not a one-off. He's said this many, many, many times before. Kamala Harris, to my knowledge, has never mentioned once in her life eliminating taxes on tips. This was her at a rally this weekend.
Including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Hold on. What? Did she just take Trump's position and act as if it's her position? How could she get away with it? What you're seeing is a big experiment. And I don't know if we're going to like the results. I hope we will, and we might. I don't know that we're going to hate the results. I don't know that we're going to love the results. But what the Democrats, what the communists have decided after COVID, after so many things, they have very clearly decided, hey, we don't need any truth anymore. We don't need to be anything anymore. We can run an entire presidential campaign on nothing. On, what did they call her? A brat in the beginning? What does that even mean? On joy. There are headlines out there today. There are campaigns focused on joy, or we can run an entire campaign telling our opponents that Trump is a threat to democracy. Can they run a presidential campaign on nothing of substance at all and still get 51% of American voters to support them? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know whether or not they can, but it's very clear at this point in time, they think they can. Look, they hid Joe Biden in a basement for 4 years, 5 years, if you count his presidential campaign. They hid him in a basement reading off note cards, teleprompters, handing him little cue cards. It says here I'm supposed to call on Amber with ABC. They pulled that off for 4 or 5 years, and it worked. And I say the American communist believes now the truth is gone, that he will just come up with something out of thin air. I mean, look at this. I want you to keep in mind, before I play this little clip of John Carl for you, keep this in mind. This is how crazy it's gotten. The whole Kamala Harris was borders are thing, that was all done on camera. It's not like I heard from a guy who heard from a guy. You could, right now, if you wanted to, you could pull up on your phone a videotape of Joe Biden sitting beside Kamala Harris saying, here she is, it's a big deal, I'm putting her in charge of the border. And not only that, they then pan over to Dome, and she thanks him for it, for lack of a better word, says, yeah, it is a big responsibility, I've got it covered. This has been done on camera. John Carl, the American media apparatchik, said this.
Well, John, we have to start with the fact that we have a wide open southern border because our border czar actually set a lot of open border policies. They suspended.
She's not actually, she wasn't the border czar.
Oh, that was what the media called her.
Flashback.
The president put Vice President Kamala Harris in playing a critical role in terms of trying to stop the flow of migrants across the border.
She had control over a lot of our border policy at a time when they were suspending. Let me finish, John. The time they were suspending deportations, they stopped Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, and they reinstituted catch and release. They basically threw open the gates of our country, and now we have a ton of fentanyl, a ton of people suffering.
But how are you going to get 10 to 15 to 20 million people out of the country?
Well, the first thing you have to do is to stop the bleeding.
It was done on camera. John Carl himself was on camera. And they want to know, have we spent enough years dumbing down and demoralizing the American people that we can now invent something out of nothing? Will the American people believe that I'm the Incredible Hulk? I don't know. We will find out in November. When I say the word communist, who do you picture? There's an image that pops up into your head. Don't think about it. What is that image? So, for most people, understandably, for me, for maybe you, when I say the word communist, what do I picture? I picture maybe a uniformed NKVD agent in the Soviet Union. Open up, you're going to the gulag, pounding on your door in the middle of the night. That's what I picture. I picture Lenin. I picture one of Mao's Red Guards terrorizing little old ladies, dragging them out of their homes. These are the images that go into my head when I think of communism. I think of black pajamas. You know, the communists in Cambodia, when Pol Pot took over there and proceeded to exterminate 25% of his country, They wanted everyone to look the same, of course. Everyone has to be the same. That's why they eliminate all beauty and everything, really. They would take people's clothes and they would dye all of them. They would dye everyone's clothes so everyone was dressed in all black and the same. Like, these are the images that pop into my head when I say the word communist. These are the people that pop into my head. But I'm shortchanging myself, and that means my mentality isn't totally where it needs to be. Because the truth is, we are surrounded by them here in the United States of America. We are. And until you accept that, maybe I haven't fully accepted that, but until we fully accept that's who we're surrounded by, we can never, ever, ever win. We are not up against Democrats. We're not up against liberals or progressives. We're up against the exact kind of people I just mentioned in the open. We don't like to think of them in that way. This reporter, our liberal Aunt Peggy, your Democrat friend. We don't like to picture them in that way because it changes how we view the world. We don't like to picture them as the NKVD agent. Open up off to the gulag. We don't like to picture that. We don't like to picture them beating people to death with sticks and hammers in Cambodia. We don't like that. It's too much to fathom. We're not surrounded by people like that. But we are. We really genuinely are. That's what these people believe. They have some kind of sick, demonic religion inside of them. And they believe there are good guys, that's them. There are bad guys, that's you. Anyone who isn't part of them is a bad guy. And because they're the good guys in their minds, they believe they can and should do anything to the bad guys. Anything you want to do to the bad guys is permissible. After all, you're the good guy in this whole thing. Remember the polls that came out during COVID? Remember the percentage of American Democrats who wanted your children taken away from you if you weren't vaccinated. Remember the percentage of American Democrats who wanted you locked in a quarantine camp if you didn't get your booster shot. You're not surrounded by Democrats. You're surrounded by communists who think the exact same way Lenin thought, Pol Pot thought, Mao thought. They think the exact same way. I want you to watch something. I want you to watch an exchange here. This reporter, he's with the Washington Post. I really want you to take this in, and I want you to realize these are the people you and I share a country with.
Elon Musk is slated to interview Donald Trump tonight on X. I don't know if the president is going to tune in. Feel free to say if he is or not. But I think that misinformation on Twitter is not just a campaign issue. It's a America issue. What role does the White House or the president have in sort of stopping that, or stopping the spread of that, or sort of intervening in that? Some of that was about campaign misinformation, but it's a wider thing, right?
What role does the White House have in stopping that? That interview took place last night. Elon Musk interviewed Trump. It was a long thing, but tons of people have watched it by now. But setting that aside, you heard that Trump was going to be interviewed by Elon Musk on Twitter. Maybe that made you happy. Maybe it made you mad. Maybe you listened. Maybe you didn't. But it never once occurred to you that the government should step in and stop a private citizen from interviewing the man running for president. But to a communist, it would never occur to him that the government shouldn't do that. Well, of course the government should step in and stop any speech I don't like or any speech I disagree with. Of course, and that's just how these people think. They can't help themselves. They're all vile, filthy little tyrannical tyrants. They're horrible little communists, and we share a country with these people. Oh, and listen to Corinne Diversity Hire's response to this guy.
You've heard us talk about this many times from here, about the responsibilities that social media platforms have when it comes to misinformation, disinformation. Don't have anything to read out from here about specific ways that we're working on it, but we believe that they have the responsibility. These are private companies, so we're also mindful of that too.
Yeah, mindful of that. So mindful of that the communists in the White House have bragged before on camera about coordinating with these private companies to, of course, silence the bad guys.
In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation.
Excuse me? We're tracking? You're tracking who? Communists? We're flagging problematic posts? The White House openly admits they'll flag your post if they don't like the information you are sharing? Please stop the act. Stop this world of make-believe you live in that we have Democrats in this country. Democrats are gone. We have communists in this country. And if you want to know how this ends, well, do remember the interview I did with Tommy Robinson, the man who's already been to prison for being a reporter in England and a man who's about to go back.
They have to control what you say. I know I look at America as having freedom of speech. Do you really have it? If YouTube, if Facebook, if Instagram, if all these platforms, TikTok, they're under their control. You only get a certain narrative. You get pumped a certain idea. Did you get real free speech with COVID, with all these different things? Or did you get lied to?
Government's about to ready to throw him in prison. These people, it's not just America, obviously, it's happening in the UK. These people are communists. When I say communist, it shouldn't just be Mao or an NKVD agent who pops into your head. You should picture Jen Psaki, Nancy Pelosi, Washington Post reporters, CNN media personalities, college professors. We are surrounded by communists just as evil, tyrannical, and violent as any communist who has ever existed. The only reason they haven't murdered as many people as the other ones is the opportunity has not yet presented itself here in this country. But if you'd like a little preview of what is coming in this country, and frankly, already here in some circumstances, listen to what they're doing in England.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
They're bragging about who and what they are on camera. Of course, because they're the good guys. You're the bad guy. What can't the good guy do to the bad guy? He is officially given his own conscience a license to do whatever he wants to you.